This is the We Get Outdoors podcast. My name is Rob Yates. I am your host, and welcome to this epic episode. Today, we're going to go and answer the question from David Poole and a comment from my business partner, Mark Hopkins, about how to not get lost in the woods. In fact, in general, how to not get lost, or possibly, if you were to turn that the other way around, how to stay on your chosen path accurately and specifically during a trip. So that's my thought for today. Now, for those of you who don't know me, I've been working at the cutting edge of being a professional outdoor expert for the past 30 years. I've led expeditions and trips all over the world, in fact, every continent apart from Antarctica. I've trained over 3,000 adventure sports coaches, guides, and leaders. I've run businesses from small to large, and personally have kayaked, canoed, and mountaineered all over the world, from the Himalayas to the Arctic Circle to South America to Central Africa. And that's what I spend my time doing. So navigation, regardless of what you're doing in the outdoors, is arguably one of the most important things that you can learn. Why? Because if you look at most errors in the outdoors, most accidents, most things that go wrong, most oopsies, whatever you want to call it, it comes often down to a lack of navigation, and that may well be in the planning phase, in the execution phase, or in the advice and review phase as well of navigating. We often overestimate how fast we can go over a given distance, or we get distracted by the world about us, or we're just frankly going beyond our level of competence. So what I'm going to share with you today is a few thoughts about navigating. And thought number one is old school is cool. Now, what do I mean by that? I firmly believe that anything that involves technology is probably an over-reliance in something that can go wrong for you. Whereas old school methodologies of navigating actually are based on things that are here today, will be here tomorrow, require no power, are obvious, are easy, and can always work for us. In fact, for most of my outdoor career, I have not ever bothered with a handheld GPS. I do have one now because working in the industry, it's sort of an expectation that you have one with you. However, I don't use it apart from in absolute emergencies. I want that thing with the batteries out in my backpack, in a little dry bag to keep it safe, normally with a bandana or a We Get Outdoors buff wrapped around it. And I want to be able to, when I'm absolutely stuck, I want to be able to go and open that thing up, fire it up, and within a few minutes get a latitude and longitude that I can go and put on a map of some sort, to give me that spot of where I am now. When I've got it, I often then take the batteries out, turn the thing off, put it back in my backpack or in my dry bag or whatever it might be, and that's the end of the use, because frankly, I don't need it for anything more than that, and really speaking, neither do you. So we've spoken about some of the technology. Let's go back to some really, really old school ideas. So the sun rises always on one side, it sets on the other side, and depending upon which hemisphere you are, will be in a certain place at lunchtime. In general terms, in fact, in all terms, if you're in the northern hemisphere, the sun will be in the south at lunchtime, and if you're in the southern hemisphere, the sun will be in the north at lunchtime. And we know that the sun rises on one side and comes up on the other side. Therefore, with that in mind, we have a compass just with the sun all on its own. When you're stuck, if you know what time of day it is, sun's coming up, it's that side, sun's going down, it's that side, sun is middle of day, it's lunchtime, sun's just there. Automatically we know a north, south, east and west, which means that if we've got a map, we can orientate our map quite easily just by using the sun. You'll also notice things like trees grow more on the sunny side, which gets most of the day's sun. So in the northern hemisphere, that will be the south side, and in the southern hemisphere, that will be the north side. During the day, trees grow more on that side. So that's another great indicator of north, south, east, and west. You'll find that moss often grows on the dampest, darkest side of a tree. So in the northern hemisphere, that will obviously be the northern side of a tree, and northern side of a tree. You'll find moss, and there is lots and lots and lots of natural indicators out there as for our direction, I suppose. But I firmly believe in having a good old-fashioned map with you. Now, if you've got a good map, the top of the map that's been built well is always going to be north, and the bottom of the map is usually south if the map's been drawn and done well, and obviously east and west will follow from that. That gives you a way of orientating yourself. What I want to share with you is a few hacks that I use to keep myself on track. And the first thing is, you'll notice that when I'm a bit pushed navigationally, you'll notice that I don't involve in witty banter or loads of conversation with the people about me. Not because I don't want to be antisocial, but because I want my senses open to how the world is moving about me as I traverse or move through it. I want my senses on full alert as to what actually is happening. Equally, I really, really dislike headphones and music. In fact, I can name countless amounts of people who've used headphones and music whilst hiking and have just got themselves lost, because you get too much into the vibe of the music and the banter and the conversation and not enough actual focus on where it is you're going. A couple of preventative bits for you, I suppose, there. The next thing I do is around breakfast time in the morning, just before we're going to get going, I look at the map and I envisage in my mind what it is that I'm going to experience between now and the next logical break. So I may well imagine that I'm going to go through a twisty, turny valley floor where suddenly, after about 2 hours of hiking, the path will shoot off up to the left-hand side, up a gully into the mountain. You imagine that I can see from the map that there's going to be cliffs either side of me, and that after about an hour of walking, I'm going to be out of the trees and it's going to be open and wide about me. And so I can start rehearsing that in my head, and as I'm walking along, if something doesn't match up with what I've rehearsed in my head from the map, I know there's something must be wrong. I will rehearse in my head, where do I believe the sun will be with relation to my body during this next phase? So if I'm in the northern hemisphere and I'm walking, for instance, south for the next few hours, and it's going to be early afternoon, I'm going to imagine that the sun should be on my face. And we can start working that out for ourselves in hour, 2 hour, or 3 hour long chunks. What that starts to do is it starts to put indicators in place for ourselves that if we're observing the environment about us and it's not matching what we expect to have, that something isn't right, and now's a good time to press reset. Equally, if you're going to hike along a stream, which side of the stream should you be hiking along? And if you think you should be on the left-hand side and you find yourself on the right-hand side of the stream, another great indicator. We can use time. Let's just say with a big backpack on for multi-day backpacking, I'm going to be hiking in the mountains at about 2, maybe 3 miles an hour. I can start saying, well, I'll experience that path shooting off to the left, up the gully towards the ridgeline. If that's about 3 miles in, so I should come across that between hours 2 and hours 2.5 as I hike. assuming I don't have huge amounts of rests. And the last thing, I suppose, not last thing, the last thought I have for right here, right now, in terms of navigation, is keep yourself hydrated, keep yourself your blood sugar level up, and don't push the distance too far every day. You tend to find that most navigational errors will happen in the back half of the day when your blood sugar level is low, your hydration is low, and you're physically and mentally a bit more tired than when you started. And that's a great indicator of what of now's a good time to have a break, maybe. And personally, I like to kneel down or sit down when I do navigation and stuff, because that makes the land more stable. So, a great map, a compass. We've got the natural compasses of the direction of growth of trees, moss, the direction of the sun, and equally the direction of the stars and moon, if you wish to treat it like that as well, because it works in the same way. We've got the idea of rehearsal and planning in our head what it is we're about to experience as we take part in this journey for the next few hours to a day, and some ideas about staying in tune with the world about you as opposed to getting sucked into dialogue, banter, earphones. In fact, a funny story about earphones is I had a guy who was used to work for me, lives in Boise in Idaho, and he loved hiking in the backcountry in Montana, in Idaho, places like that. And he talks of a day of he got up in the morning and he packed up and he starts hiking, and he pops his earphones in and he starts listening to his favorite music and turns it up louder and louder and keeps looking behind him because something doesn't feel right. And can't quite find anything, so he carries on hiking and hiking and hiking. And he stops for a coffee about 3 hours into that morning's hiking. As he stops for a coffee, a little bit of rock sort of slides down a slope off to his right-hand side. And he looks up over his right-hand shoulder. And just above him, about 20 yards above him, is a mountain lion sat crouched watching him. And maybe, quite maybe, that mountain lion was following him for ages, and that's what the feeling of not quite right was, but he couldn't get in tune with it because of the noise of his headphones was blocking him out being in tune with the environment about him. So there we are, a few thoughts about how not to get lost in the woods. Hope that's useful for you. If you want any more, please write a review, obviously subscribe to the podcast, share it with all your friends on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, anywhere else you want to go and find it. And if you want something more on navigation or have some questions, please drop me a line to wegetoutdoorstribe@gmail.com, and I'll put a link to that below, and I will put your questions into some live Q&As that we're going to be doing very soon. Hope that's useful. My name's Rob Yates. I'm a co-founder of We Get Outdoors. I've been working in the outdoors as a professional for over 30 years, and have an amazing day further.